So my name's Jessica Thomas. If you do not know me, it is nice to meet you. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and tonight's program is going to be on depression and multiple sclerosis. And before we get started in the program, I really want to make an effort to say thank you to MS Views and News for bringing this MS Mental Wellness Chat to everybody this evening. And then also, I wanted to thank our sponsors, because without them, this program would not be possible. So our sponsors tonight are Biogen, Novartis, END Serono, Bristol-Myers Squibb, and Janssen, a Johnson & Johnson company. So thank you to our sponsors for bringing tonight's program, Depression and MS, and let's talk about it. So we're going to move on to introduction. So if you do not know me, again, I'm Jessica Thomas. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I specialize in helping people with emotional wellness, helping people live well with MS and other neurological diseases. But I like to share a little bit about me in the form of numbers, because I feel like it's the most interesting way. So 17 is the number of years that I've been married. 16 of those years, out of those 17 years, 16 of those years I've been living with MS. So I was newly diagnosed at a time of being a newlywed. And then 15 is the number of years that I've been a clinical social worker, and I've been helping people live with MS. I've been a social worker for a longer time before that, but after my diagnosis, I decided to help other people living with MS. And then 14 is the number of years that that my son turned this year. So I had my son after my MS diagnosis, and I also decided to professionally focus on helping other people live well emotionally with MS after my diagnosis. So it's a little bit about me. So we're going to move on to our next slide, and we're going to just kind of go over some ground rules. This is not a counseling session. I am a mental health therapist, but I do like to just kind of mention it's not a specific MS counseling session. Also, this program is being recorded. So if I go over resources or materials, this program is recorded, and you'll be able to find it on the MS Views and News YouTube channel. And that's usually posted in about a week. They're really fast and really good about getting these videos up. And then the final thing is there is a question box. So this is an MS Mental Wellness Chat, and you may have been on some of these, or this might be brand new for you tonight. But I like to use the question box to connect a little bit. So what I would like to do, if at all possible, is we will get started. So if you could go to the question box if you are comfortable, and just type in your name and where you are, where you're coming from tonight, where you are at. Like, for example, I'm Jessica, and I am feeling pretty good. My energy's pretty good today, and I'm in North Carolina. So we have Maddie here. He is from North Carolina. We have Jill. Hi, Jill from Florida. We have let's see. We have Maddie from North Carolina. Mary Lou from the Bronx. If you don't want me to say where you're from, just don't type anything in, please. Maria from Miami, Elizabeth from Beth from South Carolina, Brenda from Arizona, Tammy from Tennessee, Sharon from New Jersey, Ricky from California, Rhonda from California. I'm going to California in a couple weeks, so I'm super excited about that. Pam from New Orleans, and we have Christy. Hi, Christy from North Carolina. Linda from New York. We have Nora from Florida, Melissa from Florida, Terry from Seattle. We have a lot of people from all over tonight, and Robin from Florida as well. So I'm going to use this chat box, this question box, some in today's program, and it's mostly to one, keep you guys engaged, but also connected. And I know that you can't see what other people are writing, so I ask that if you use the question box, and you don't want me to read out what you said, just say confidential or please don't read if you just want to share something with me. But otherwise, I kind of share some of the things because I think it's important. Right now, it's been a very isolating time, and we need to feel connected. And so I ask if you need to, please, just put confidential, or please just say, don't say please. And I will honor and respect that, absolutely. So we are going to talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about this evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about coping with depression. I'm going to talk a little bit about seasonal depression and also staying well this winter, because this is something that is very common. It can be very hard for people during the winter months. We're going to talk a little bit about identifying needs and asking for support, coping with apathy and loss of motivation. So it's going to be a pretty packed program tonight. But I am ready to dive right in. So we're going to get started with the holidays and emotions. So I threw this slide in at the last minute because I think we need to talk about it. The holidays can be very stressful, and I've had counseling sessions with patients all week, and they've been pretty hard sessions. And a lot of times it's because the holidays aren't as easy and as happy as a Hallmark movie, right? The Hallmark movies are great, and they're psychologically great for us to watch because they all have good, happy endings. But the holidays can be kind of tricky, and we're in another holiday during COVID. And so I just wanted to check in with you guys. How are you doing? I might not read everything that you write for here, but how are you doing with the holidays? I think it's important to know that the holidays sometimes can be really tough because we have different expectations from different family members, different expectations from ourselves. Sometimes our bodies don't meet the expectations that we have. Sometimes it's hard because families are complicated. COVID has complicated the holidays as well. And then also sometimes memories can make the holidays kind of tough too. So we had someone that's saying that, the holidays have been kind of so-so. And some people have said, no problem, no issues, great. But if you are struggling a little bit with the holidays, I just wanted to just say, that it is really, very normal that some people struggle a little bit at the holidays. And it's important to honor how you're feeling. If you're having periods of grief, or you're dealing with loss or sadness or stress or anxiety, it's important to acknowledge what's going on. We had someone here that said, first holiday not stressed out. That is amazing. And someone said COVID makes it hard because their family and friends aren't around, and I can understand that too. And then another person said that they're grateful because they're going to hang out with some of their friends. And so I know we're all probably in different places with the holidays, but I just wanted to take a moment and say that it's normal if you're struggling a little bit. If you are struggling, I think it's really important to try to stay connected with people if you can, even if it's not in person. It's important to definitely talk with a therapist if you need to, but also give yourself space if you're feeling sad or if you are feeling nostalgic, to just allow yourself to feel how you're feeling, but maybe also taking some breaks, going outside maybe, taking a walk if you can, but if you cannot take a walk, then maybe going outside, sitting in the cool air, going to look at Christmas lights if that makes you happy, or listening to music, etc. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit before we got started with depression and MS. So depression it's an interesting thing because it's not a disorder that you can get an MRI and you find out, I've got depression. Depression really is diagnosed from reported symptoms that people experience. And so often with depression, you see, and I'm sorry, my dog Bella is behind me. I have a dog that apparently wants to be on the video today. She never does that. But sadness or a depressed mood. So people with depression often feel that, or they may feel a loss of interest in activities, doing things that they used to enjoy. They have had changes in appetite or sleep habits, fatigue, not the same fatigue from MS, but fatigue, feelings of guilt or worthlessness, having a hard time concentrating or making decisions, or having suicidal thoughts or actions, or even just kind of thoughts of passively not wanting to live. So with depression, it's a very serious thing. And for some people, the winter can trigger a little bit more depression, and we're going to talk a little bit about seasonal depression here in a little bit. But if you've had any of these symptoms that I've listed, and they have lasted longer than 2 weeks, I want you to talk to your primary care physician. I had someone here that wrote a question: where's the boundary between depression and clinical depression? There is a diagnosis that's more like having more dysphoric feelings, and that is there's different levels of depression. So you could have depression, a single episode that's very mild. And then you can also have depression that a single episode that's moderate or very severe, and or you could have a recurring type of depression. And so in my mind, I think all depression is clinical, but then also there's different levels. There might be feelings of sadness or mood changes that are related to changes in your life. And so that sadness, that dysphoric feeling is not quite the same as a major depressive episode, if that makes sense. And so depression is it's a primary predictor of quality of life in MS. So now we're going to talk a little bit about depression and its relationship to MS, because second to physical disability, depression really changes quality of life. And now when you have physical disability, I'm not saying that you have a bad quality of life either, but with MS, primary would be that changes in physical disability could change some aspects of quality of life, and then depression is really the secondary predictor of quality of life with MS. And moods, they really play a big part in our lives, whether or not you have MS or not. And when I talk about depression here in a little bit, I am going to be talking a little bit about to people with MS about depression, but really the information I'm going to be sharing is also going to be a little bit more broad. It's going to be for anybody with depression, to be honest. And then a person's emotional state can influence their physical and cognitive functioning. So if you can think about this being kind of like full circle, that depression can impact how you feel physically and definitely how you feel cognitively. For example, if you're dealing with depression, often you have fatigue, and that physically is, or your appetite might not be that good, and you might lose weight, or you might feel a little bit foggy with depression. And moods can definitely impact our quality of life just in general. So with people that are living with MS, all the depressive disorders are much more common. And I did a mood program on mood changes with MS, and I talked a little bit about that. But major depressive disorder may affect over 50% of people with MS. And that's so half of the people with MS may experience a major depressive disorder episode at one point in their diagnosis. And so effective treatment for this, if you are feeling like you have experienced some of those symptoms that I mentioned earlier, and you're feeling like that you've experienced them for 2 weeks or more, I want you to get in touch with your doctor, because maybe you're experiencing a period of depression. And I will always say that depression is treatable. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing to treat, but it is treatable. So we're going to move on So researchers, are really finding evidence that people with MS really can get depression for a couple different reasons. There may be changes. There might be a genetic disposition. There might be early life experiences. Current circumstances, just having MS can actually cause some discomfort, disruption in your life and cause depression as well. But then also, I'm going to focus a little bit today on some changes in the brain that can happen, not specific to MS, but specific to depression. And the physiology of MS may contribute to depression. And so it's more common for somebody with MS to have depression. So I think if you leave from anything from this program today, I hope that you see that there's often a connection with MS and depression, and it's treatable. So here I have some neurotransmitters and mood, and I think that this is fascinating. So in our brain, I am not a neurologist. I am a licensed clinical social worker that does a lot of research, have a lot of interest in MS, and so I might mess up sometimes on how to say something, but I do a lot of research because I'm very interested in how emotional health and how emotional wellness and everything impacts us. So we have neurotransmitters, and these all have different functions, which is really cool. So this slide is a little bit simplified, but it shows us how each neurotransmitter system has a few primary effects for our brain. Like, for example, serotonin improves willpower, mood, and motivation. Norepinephrine enhances thinking, focusing, and dealing with stress. Dopamine increases enjoyment, and that's necessary for changing habits. Oxytocin promotes feelings of trust, love, and connection, and also reduces anxiety. GABA increases feelings of relaxation and also reduces anxiety. Melatonin enhances the quality of sleep. Endorphins provide pain relief and feelings of elation. And endocannabinoids, I'm sorry, I say that one wrong, improves your appetite and increased feelings of peacefulness and well-being. And so what you can see is that we have a lot of neurotransmitter systems that function and do a lot of things that help us to feel emotionally well. So here is the image of a brain, and so this right here is the frontal limbic system, and this I think is very, very fascinating. So in general, the limbic system and depression are kind of related, because depression happens because a dysfunction in this communication of the frontal limbic system. So I'm going to explain a little bit. So for different parts of the brain, the prefrontal cortex helps you manage your emotions and desires that you can plan for the future. So I want you to, as I name these parts, I don't want you to remember them. I just want you to think, oh, well, that area, like that part of my my personality, or that part of my depression is impacted. It's probably because it's impacted from this part of your brain. The dorsal stratum acts out old habits. The nucleus accumbens controls enjoyment and impulses. The interior cingulate manages attention to the negative or to the positive. The insula is responsible for emotional sensations. The amygdala mediates anxiety. The hypothalamus regulates hormones and controls the stress response. The hippocampus is closely tied to the amygdala and the hypothalamus, and it's essential to learning and memory. So there's a lot of parts of our brain that are very, very much a part of our emotional wellness. And it's not just one part of our brain, it's a lot of different parts, and then a lot of the neurotransmitter systems as well. And so various brains react, and they create a downward spiral of depression. So this is why that sometimes depression can feel like a downward spiral. And it's because of this, the problems with the limbic communication syndrome, and some of the tuning in the neural circuits is just not working. So tonight, I'm going to bring this idea. What if we could do if we could change the tuning in one circuit, even just a tiny bit? So today I'm going to be talking about depression in the sense of an upward spiral. What are things that we can do that can help create an upward spiral? Now, this does not replace taking medication. This is not going to replace going to a therapist if you're going to a therapist. This is not going to replace the things that you might already have in place, but this might be a different way of looking at it. Now, I'm going to reference a book right here because I need to give it credit. So there's a book called The Upward Spiral. And when I saw this book, and it's using neuroscience to reverse the course of depression, one small change at a time. When I saw this book, I was really impressed because I used to draw a spiral for my clients, and I would say, it feels like sometimes that you feel like you've spiraled all the way down. With depression, it feels like this. But I said the way that it feels like you spiral down, you can spiral back up with small changes. And so when I saw this book and I saw the title, I checked it out from the library and I read it, and it's a great book. So I'm going to be using some of the strategies from this book today, and I wanted to give it credit. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to discuss how, we can maybe make some small changes and how these might enhance that neurotransmitter system and kind of help to create the upward spiral. So we're going to talk a little bit today about coping with depression, just in general. And I'm going to also integrate those upward spirals, but these are all things that you can do that help to do that. So coping with depression, some things that you can do: talking to a therapist, journaling, either writing in a journal, or some people even electronically do that these days. Staying on a schedule and routine. This is probably one of the biggest things that I recommend for people, and especially when it comes to apathy, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Staying involved, staying socially active, depending on others, asking for help, getting enough sleep, exercising, and then also seeing the connection between food and mood, because there is a connection. So when you think about those things, you may be able to find one of those coping mechanisms, one of those topics. And by activating one of those, that might be the beginning of your spiral, if that makes sense. And if we can spiral up, we begin to be able to spiral up a little bit more. When I work with my patients, I say small steps make big differences, and that's kind of what I'm getting to here. So the next thing we're going to talk about is exercising your brain. I talk a lot about exercise as a way of navigating and managing depression. There's a lot of benefits to it. And exercise looks different as we look different. I know for me, exercise looks different seasonally. But I know from person to person, exercise looks different based on limitations, modifications, etc. But some of the great benefits of exercise is that you increase serotonin. So you automatically start to feel a little bit more positive. You feel a little bit better. Your thinking improves with exercise. It doesn't take away cognitive dysfunction. I wish it did, and I get cognitive fatigue sometimes, and I definitely know what that feels like. So it doesn't change that, but it does help you think a little bit better. It also really calms the stress hormones down, and this is important because we have a lot of stress around us. And then people that exercise tend to sleep a little bit better. I encourage exercise, and I think it's a hard thing sometimes to encourage because of course, I don't know what everybody's limitations are. But I definitely recommend the exercise is one of the best things that you can do for your mood, as well as for your MS and for your body. It's just finding the right type of exercise and the right environment for you. Now we're going to move on to our next slide, and we're going to, before I talk about it, I'm going to look at the question box real quick. And I have a question. If you feel your depression is getting worse, let's see, I cannot read all of it. I'm so sorry. But the psychiatrist, let's see, feels the symptoms are normal. So, that's a question that, if you're I'm not going to call out whoever this is, but I recommend you continue to work with your psychiatrist and, work with your primary care doctor and express your concerns. Sometimes we do see that depression can dip a little bit more, and I think that open dialogue and that communication is really important with your healthcare team. And then there's another question. If we have lesions in those areas, could that contribute to some of the depression? Now, I personally do not know all the etiology of the of depression within MS, but my guess is yes. If you have lesions around the area, that it probably could impact some, definitely some mood. I think with depression and MS, there's a lot of different reasons why depression and MS coexist. So we're going to talk a little bit about staying emotionally well and seasonal depression. I'm going to just ask some of you on here, how many of you deal with some level of seasonal depression? That you notice that when the days get shorter, that maybe your mood gets lower? Okay, so we have some people saying me already. Do you notice yesterday was a really good example. In North Carolina, we had a very gray day yesterday. It reminded me, it's very reminiscent of like the New England area in the winter. It was cold and it was gray, and I noticed all my counseling sessions, their moods were just very low. And weather and the lack of sunlight definitely impacts moods. We have a couple of people that deal with some seasonal depression. It is something that many of my patients deal with, and I do notice that when the season starts to change, we need to kind of start having a game plan of what to do. What are the coping mechanisms going to be for you? And so Becky here says she has a mood light that she uses. I actually have a mood light here in my office. It would take me too long to reach it out and find it for you. But during COVID, I got a mood light for my office because I thought, I probably need to make sure that when the sunlight is less, that I am getting enough light, because light for me directly impacts my mood and my energy. And then we have someone, Rhonda says, when it's overcast and stays overcast, it's rough. Absolutely. So seasonal depression, it's a seasonal affective disorder. It's a type of mood disorder that's associated with seasonal changes. And it's commonly seen as depression during the winter months. And from patients that I see, I can see that I've seen consecutively for years, I see the trend of how that happens during the year. So it happens as a kind of natural part of as the seasons change. And what happens is that they're like when things happen, or when they go from summer to winter or fall, that people tend to start feeling a little bit depressed, or they have sadness, reduced energy. And they might lose concentration, or might not have as much of an appetite. So this is a good, going back, Jill had mentioned like a fine line between like depression and clinical depression. So this is a good example, because seasonal affective disorder is definitely a depressive disorder, but it's not the same as a major depressive disorder. It's a seasonal affective disorder. So it's kind of like a different boundary between the two. Treatments for seasonal affective disorder are light therapy, which has been mentioned, medications, psychotherapy. We also, patients that I work with, we talk about keeping their house kind of well lit, like when they wake up in the morning, opening up all the blinds. Today in this room that I'm in right now has like 4 lamps. So I have a lot of brightness, mostly because because I'm presenting, but it's important to have that kind of brightness at home too. And making sure that you're getting outside, that you're walking regularly, and that you engage in activities. Some of my patients, I'll have them engage in music or art, something to help keep them engaged. And then also sticking to as much of a routine as they can. So this is a real challenge for people, and it is not exclusive to MS, but it does happen to people with MS. And I see a direct connection between mood and seasonal changes with some of my MS patients as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about coping with loss and motivation. So apathy. So apathy is essentially, it is a lack of, or a feeling of not really wanting to do anything, not having as much interest or concern about things. Somebody that's dealing with apathy may have a little bit of like ambivalence or lack of interest in wanting to engage in social activities, emotional activities, educational activities, or even engage in that, have that much interest in what's going on in the state of the world. I will say this just for levity and lightness. As I was doing this, I thought, sometimes I think my son is apathetic. I have a teenager, and I do think teenagers are kind of apathetic. They're kind of like, I don't know, I don't care, it's fine, whatever. But apathy is a real thing, and it's it can be a very difficult symptom for someone to deal with. And so, it also, people with apathy might feel like they have a lack of purpose or a lack of worth or meaning. And people that deal with apathy and severe apathy tend to have a lower quality of life and a higher risk of mortality. And so addressing apathy is really important. And so how you address apathy, I've mentioned and I've talked about apathy a lot on some of these programs that I've done, is there's no medication that you can take to just make apathy go away. And apathy can very much be a part of depression, very much. And at the same time, it's a symptom of depression, but it's not a symptom that can be fully treated. How you deal with apathy is through having routine, through working, with a counselor. Having routine or structure is probably the biggest thing to help with apathy. One of the hardest things about depression and apathy is having to make choices and decisions. And I think that's where it can be really tough with apathy, because you just don't really want to. And so one of the best things is to have a routine, a structure, a schedule, etc. So that way you don't have to say, do I want to go or do I not want to go? Because with apathy, you kind of don't want to go. But if you have it as a routine and a structure, something that you're regularly doing, you get up and you go to yoga because that's what you do. You don't have to ask yourself if you should go to yoga, or if you do want to go to yoga. You do it because it's a part of your routine. So the next thing we're going to talk about is some other interventions for depression. So these are some that I've mentioned already, but there is counseling, medications, and medications will, they can change the neurochemistry in your brain, and they can be quite effective. Counseling can help too, because it can change some of your thinking patterns. And if you can change some of your thinking patterns, that might help you spiral up a little bit. If you're taking a medication and it's effective, it can help you spiral up a little bit. It might lift the depression enough to where it's easier to get up in the morning and take a shower, or allow you to come up with a routine and be able to continue your routine through the day, etc. And then there's behavioral activation, and that's, you know, the exercise, and some of the lifestyle things, the practicing meditation, etc. And those are really helpful tools for depression as well. Now, there's also brain stimulation techniques, and I don't know a whole lot about these. I know a little bit because I did work in an intensive outpatient therapy program for a bit. And so I worked with people that were at risk for suicide or recently hospitalized for suicide, and they had just discharged out of the program. So I'm familiar with this a little bit, but not all the way, enough to articulate too much about it. But there's TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation. And that is used sometimes when depression medication is not been effective. It's usually a second type of treatment. I only know one person with MS that has had this, and this person has not had it. He just finished his treatment, so we don't really know if it's going to be effective or not. But I am excited and hopeful that it might be. There's also vagus nerve stimulation, and I've talked about in some of the programs in the past about how the vagus nerve is very much connected with your parasympathetic nervous system, and your fight or flight state that you could be in. So if you can activate the vagus nerve, you often can calm the body, which very much can help with depression as well. And then there is electroconvulsive therapy, and this is for very, very severe depression, and it is not what I think many people think it is in terms of shock therapy. It's called ECT. It can be a very effective treatment for someone that is treatment resistant and has had major depressive, severe depression for many years. It can be very helpful. I have seen patients do very well on ECT. You don't see it as much, but when I worked in intensive outpatient therapy, I did see that quite a bit. Now, I wanted to ask, we're going to go to the questions real quick for a second, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm so sorry, it's so hard for me to read. I always feel like I stare, I maybe need to get glasses. Okay, any suggestions on how to stay socially active during the pandemic? So I would like for you guys to chime in. What have you done to stay socially active during the pandemic? For me, a couple things that I have done is I have utilized video type technology. I've also utilized going outside, meeting people when it's been safe. But I know that we've had some ups and downs with COVID, and it seems like we're, this week it just feels like we're kind of coming back into another wave that we have to be really careful about, right? And so during those times, like I back off of a lot of extra socialization. We have Jill here. She does Zoom exercise. What a great way to socialize and be connected. I have many patients that do that as well. Someone that, they use their masks and they make sure they wear masks when they go out, and I do that as well. That's a great suggestion. And we know that masks are effective, and so if you have questions, talk with your doctor or medical team about, but being careful, taking the precautions. We know that socialization is incredibly important for us, and loneliness and isolation is not healthy. And I spend a lot of time with people that that have been very isolated during this time. And so finding ways to build a sense of community right now for yourself. It might not be your perfect community. It might not be your ideal community. But doing things like this, you know, I know it's just me you're seeing, but I'm hoping you're feeling connected with one another a little bit. But finding ways to connect with others. I also did a program last week, and I really focused on, it was called Home But Not Alone. And I think that that was a good program to go back and watch, because I talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on in the MS community right now, so that if you're feeling alone, how can you have a bigger sense of community right now? And so we have someone here that's they've used video technology for learning, exercise, for church and activities, etc. And then want to read this one real quick. Okay, so we have someone, you know, that's, you know, has had MS for a while, and they're, you know, dealing with some mood or seasonal changes right now, and frustrated over a lot of things. What I'm going to say is that if you notice that lots of areas of your life is causing sadness, or you're noticing that your mood is low, or those beginnings, the symptoms that I read in the beginning, you've noticed that you've been feeling that way. If you've been feeling guilt or loss of interest, if you've been feeling very sad, not being able to sleep or eat, and you've experienced that for more than 2 weeks, I want you to call your doctor. A referral for a counselor probably would be a great thing for you. And so we have someone else that they said using a light box has been helpful in meditation. Also for being connected, they've used Facebook, Messenger, and texting with their adult children. So great. So that is all really good suggestions. So thank you. So we're going to move on to our next slide, and we're going to talk about biofeedback. So a lot of times when we hear biofeedback, we think about it connected to a piece of equipment. Like if I was wearing my Apple Watch, which I don't wear during programs because it can be distracting, but if I was to wear it, if my heart rate was to go up, my Apple Watch would tell me that my heart rate was going up a little bit. Or it might even tell me sometimes to breathe. Sometimes I think it must know if I'm really doing something intensely, so it'll tell me to breathe. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of some organic biofeedback. So this is not related to equipment, but these are things that if you do, they make you feel better. So you automatically get a response from your body. So when you listen to music, and I've had music on the question, people have been talking a little bit about music here and there already this evening about how it helps. If you listen to music, you automatically have a response to it. So music can make you happy. It's one of my stress relievers. Now, maybe I won't listen to a song that makes me sad or reminds me of something, but absolutely, I will listen to a song that will elevate my mood, and it elevates my mood. Smiling, when you smile, you naturally feel better. Does it take a depression away? No. So I know that's not the case. But you feel better when you smile. The same if you frown, that's why you feel worse when you frown. When you laugh, you tend to feel a little bit better, so your body automatically gets feedback that this feels a little bit better. When you calm your face, and so calming your face, I don't know, I'm probably making a lot of really great faces today because I have to lean in and read, and which means I make kind of like a frown, a scowl kind of face. But if you notice that you're holding tension in your face, if you can kind of relax your face, relax your brow, loosen your mouth if you tend to clench your teeth, what happens is that gives some feedback to your body of relaxing. Changing your breathing. This immediately connects to that vagus nerve. So if you breathe, and you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, and I like the breathing pattern where you breathe in say for a count of 3, but you breathe out for a count of 6, so your exhale is twice as long as your inhale, that automatically relaxes your body. That's going to send messages through your vagus nerve that's going to help to calm your parasympathetic nervous system down. It's a very cool thing that you can automatically get feedback. So if your blood pressure is super high or your heart rate's been, your heart's racing fast, you can do that and you can sort of calm it down a little bit. And then also relaxing your muscles. There is a type of relaxation activity called progressive relaxation, and I love it because it is a guided exercise that allows you to learn and teach yourself how you relax your muscles naturally. And so from that, I've been able to sort of just be able to learn just to relax. But if you're, what you can do is if you notice if your shoulders are, really high up, kind of relax them, kind of drop your shoulders a little bit. Or if you are one of those people that like just tenses up their leg, relax your leg. Now I'm not talking about if you have spasticity and other issues. I'm just saying just with stress and your body and tension in general. As much as you can relax your body, that's really helpful, and you get kind of feedback automatically from that. So we're going to talk just a couple takeaways real quick from tonight's program, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about questions. Depression is treatable. There is help available. If you think or feel like you might be dealing with depression, it doesn't matter how small you might think the depression is or how big you might think it is. Depression can be treatable, and that should be a symptom that you don't face alone. There's things that you can do to spiral up, and it's hard. I wish I could. I recommend the book that I mentioned earlier. It's a great book. But it's a really true thing that there's things that you can do that influence those neurotransmitters that that will be positive, where you can slowly spiral up through coping. So remember that it feels like depression that you spiral down, but there's small things that you can do that help spiral you up. And to remember that you're not alone. And MS really shouldn't be done alone, at least in my opinion. And it's important to build an emotional support team. So I'm going to go to the questions real quick, and I'm going to make the screen a little bit bigger. Okay, so we have someone here that has said watching funny videos has helped. That actually is a really great thing, because that kind of helps to stimulate laughing, which is that biofeedback that you can feel good. Okay, I had someone ask again what the title of the book was, and it's called The Upward Spiral: Using Neuroscience to Reverse the Course of Depression, One Small Change at a Time. But it's called The Upward Spiral. There is a workbook that goes along with it, and I don't have the workbook, but I recommend the book. I think it explains the brain very well. It's very easy to read, and I think it's very encouraging that there's things that you can see that you can do to kind of help break some of maybe the bad patterns, the bad habits that happen with depression, and integrate some small changes that can help you spiral up. Okay, so let me make sure I'm not missing any other questions here. So I would like for you in the chat box to tell me what is one thing that you have done before that has helped you to spiral up a little bit? Have you ever noticed that there's something that you've done that helps you spiral up a little bit? And I will share my first thing is that I noticed that when my mood is bad or it's off a little bit, I noticed that I can spiral up more if I go outside. And for me, going outside, and sometimes I'm taking a walk. Now, Rhonda says music. That's such a great thing. Yeah, music can help you kind of spiral up. That's a great suggestion. And also Rhonda said sunshine. That is so true. I in the summer and spring, well, a little bit in the summer because it's hot here, but in the spring, definitely. I go and I sit outside sometimes because that 10 minutes in the sun can really help. Linda listens to Adele. That is awesome. So listening to music that she likes can help her feel a little bit better. Playing with my pets, Elizabeth said, and then Terry said playing with my granddaughter. Oh my goodness. When you play with your pet or you play with your granddaughter, both of those, what happens is you create oxytocin, like it's that feel good love chemical. And then Jill says, Facebook joke site, or I think Facebook joke sites. Yeah, I looking at for fun things, funny things, right? Like that can definitely spiral you up. Now, I know one of the things that can spiral me up, and some of my patients is that we'll talk about in the morning, although the mornings can be really hard for people. I know for me, for fatigue, that it's hard, but I know for depression, it can be really hard. We talk about in the morning not deciding if you're going to shower or not, or bathe or not, or get dressed or not. That what we do is that we decide, okay, that's the one thing that they're going to do is they're going to get up and they're going to shower or bathe. If that's something that they can do easily. If not, they're going to get up and get dressed and brush their teeth. But that creates a little bit of a spiral up. And the reason why is because if they didn't do that, then they would still feel right there. But because they got up and got dressed or got up and took a shower, they feel a little bit better, which means that for their brain, that's going to be reinforcing that they feel a little bit better. So they're going to be a little bit more apt to do maybe one other little thing that might help. But if we don't do that first thing, it's really hard to do the other thing to spiral up, if that makes sense. So we talk about having routine and kind of finding like one thing they can focus on doing, because by doing that, they feel successful. But then also it's the beginning of that spiral up. So what is one thing, I'm just interested, what is one thing that you are, that you learned from today's program? I will, while we have people writing, so what is one thing that you learned from today's program? And while you're writing, I'll tell you what I learned. I learned that there was a lot of, it was really neat to see and read as I was preparing for this program. Of course, I know a lot about depression. I know a lot about MS, but I thought that was really cool that you could see that like all those neurotransmitters and all their primary places that they affect, if you have one area, it makes it hard for another area. So let me give you an example. So if you are low, if your moods are low because of serotonin, you don't have enough serotonin, then that's going to, and that affects motivation, then it's going to be really hard to do something that, to accomplish a task that's going to allow you to create dopamine. And because of that, you might feel guilty or bad or not feel good, and that might challenge some of the melatonin. So it kind of comes full circle. But then when you think about it from the other effect, is that you can definitely see that if you are able to do certain things, right? So say you take a medication that does help some with serotonin, and so that has helped a little bit, then that might give you the emotional energy to be able to have a little bit of a routine. And in that routine, then you tend to create more opportunities to get dopamine naturally. And then from that, you tend to be a little bit more thankful and be more grateful, which tends to make you sleep better. There's some information on being able to sleep better when you're more grateful. And then, so overall, everything kind of comes full circle. So I learned a little bit more about that, and that was really cool. So I have So Maddie said that learning about the brain stuff was really cool. And then Terry said spiraling up, smiles, releasing endorphins, which means I need to be social. We are meant to be connected with each other. Even if we are introverts, we are meant to be connected with each other. So I hope that, Terry, that you'll be able to be a little bit social too. So we're going to talk a little bit about next month's program. And so this is the MS Mental Wellness Chat through MS Views and News, and I've been doing them monthly now. I think this is the 7th one. We have some great programs for 2022. And so next month's program is going to be building psychological resilience with MS. And so we're going to look a lot at closer at strategies and tools that are going to help you be more psychologically resilient, because MS is challenging and life is challenging. And, you know, right now COVID is challenging, you know, and so I want to help you guys be as resilient as you can. So we're going to learn positive coping skills. We're going to learn ways to increase resiliency and to better manage some of the stressors in our lives. And then we are going to learn solution-focused approaches to dealing with transitions. So that is going to be our focus, and it will be on the 19th of January. And so I wanted to stop here for a second and again thank all of our sponsors for tonight's program, and thank you to MS Views and News for bringing the MS Mental Wellness Chat to us, because we know it's very important for us right now, especially during this time. So I will put on the next slide real quick. This is my favorite slide. I always like to say, we'll put a bookmark here. I like to read and I like to research, but I'm not saying goodbye. This is, I will see you later. So I hope that you have a great night. I hope that your holiday is nice. I'm sure it's not going to be perfect because they never are, but I wish you a nice evening and a nice holiday with as much peace as possible. If you need help, I encourage you to talk to your doctor, and we'll see you next month at the next Mental Wellness Chat. Take care.